Captain Zara Velta stood on the bridge of her ship, the Gentle Dawn. She was tired, very tired. For 3 weeks, she had been guiding her transport vessel through dangerous space, carrying over 3,000 refugees. These people had lost their homes in the war. They were families, children, elderly folks who just wanted to find peace somewhere safe. Zara was Valorian. Her people had soft blue skin and 4 arms, which made piloting easier. She had been a captain for 20 years, but this journey was the hardest one yet. The refugees trusted her to get them to safety. She could see their hopeful faces every time she walked through the cargo bays where they lived temporarily. The Gentle Dawn was not a military ship. It had no weapons, no armor, nothing to defend itself. It was just a simple transport vessel designed to carry people and cargo from one place to another. Zara had always believed that being peaceful and following the rules would keep them safe. Today, she would learn how wrong that belief was. Her communications officer, a young Valorian named Kryn, suddenly looked up from his station. His face went pale and his hands started shaking. Zara felt her heart sink before he even spoke. "Captain, we have a ship dropping out of hyperspace. It is big. Very big." Kryn's voice trembled as he read the sensor data. "It is a Krathian battlecruiser." The word Krathian made everyone on the bridge freeze. The Krathians were known throughout the galaxy as brutal warriors. They were reptilian creatures covered in thick scales with sharp teeth and cold eyes. But their physical appearance was not what made them terrifying. It was their complete lack of mercy. They took what they wanted, destroyed what resisted them, and enslaved those who surrendered. Zara's mind raced. They were in neutral space, supposedly safe from any attacks. The galactic laws protected civilian ships in these corridors, but laws only mattered if someone enforced them, and there were no peacekeepers nearby. "Try to hail them," Zara ordered, though she knew it was probably useless. "Tell them we are a civilian transport with refugees. We are not armed. We are just passing through." Kryn sent the message. For a moment there was silence. Then the Krathian ship responded, but not with words. Red lights lit up on the sensor display. Weapons charging. Zara felt sick to her stomach. "They are targeting us," Kryn whispered. "Captain, what do we do?" What could they do? The Gentle Dawn had basic shields, enough to protect against space debris and radiation, but nothing that could stop military-grade weapons. They had engines, but the Krathian ship was faster. They could not outrun it. They could not fight it. They could not hide. The first shot hit their rear shields. The entire ship shook violently. Zara grabbed her chair to keep from falling. Alarms started blaring throughout the vessel. Down in the refugee sections, she knew people were screaming in fear. "Shields at 70%, her engineer called out from his station. "Another hit like that and we will start taking hull damage." Zara made a decision. A desperate, terrifying decision. She turned to Kryn. "Send out a distress call. Send it on all frequencies. Every channel you can think of. But Captain, the nearest Valorian military base is 3 days away. The Galactic Council peacekeepers will take weeks just to file the paperwork. We do not have time." "I know," Zara said quietly. She looked at her display, at the star chart showing their position. Right at the edge of the neutral zone, and just beyond that boundary was human space. Humans. The word alone made most species nervous. They had appeared in the galaxy only 40 years ago, arriving in crude but functional ships. They were strange creatures standing on 2 legs with no natural armor or weapons. They looked weak, soft even. But then the scientists had examined their homeworld, Earth, and discovered the truth. Earth was rated as a Class 12 Deathworld, the highest rating ever recorded. A planet so dangerous that most species would die within hours of landing there. It had massive predators, deadly diseases, extreme weather, and natural disasters that could wipe out entire cities. Humans had not just survived on this nightmare world. They had thrived. They had conquered it. What kind of species could survive a Class 12 death world? What kind of beings could take a planet trying to kill them every single day and turn it into their home? Most galactic species stayed away from humans, viewing them as unpredictable and potentially dangerous. Another blast hit the Gentle Dawn. The lights flickered. Zara could hear the groaning of metal as the hull started to buckle. "Captain, shields at 40%. We are losing structural integrity on decks 5 through 7. Zara looked at Kryn. The young officer was staring at her, waiting for orders. She could see the fear in his eyes. He knew what she was thinking. "Send the distress call to human space," Zara commanded. "All human frequencies. Tell them we are a civilian transport under attack. Tell them we have 3,000 souls aboard, including children. Request immediate assistance." Kryn hesitated. His hands hovered over his controls. "Captain, are you certain?" "The humans, they are... the stories about them." "I know the stories," Zara said firmly. "I know everyone says they are dangerous, that they are unpredictable, that they come from a world of monsters and they might be monsters themselves. But right now they are our only hope. Send the message." Kryn nodded and started typing frantically. His fingers flew across the controls, broadcasting their distress signal toward human territory. Another explosion rocked the ship. This time it was worse. The lights went completely dark for several seconds before emergency power kicked in. Zara heard screaming over the internal communications. People were hurt. "People were dying." "Message sent," Kryn reported. His voice cracked. "Captain, what if they do not come? What if they ignore us?" Zara did not have an answer. She had gambled everything on a species she did not know, did not understand. Maybe the stories were true. Maybe humans were too dangerous to help them. Maybe they would see the distress call and decide it was not their problem, or maybe, just maybe, they would surprise everyone. The Krathian battle cruiser moved closer, preparing for another attack. Zara watched the tactical display, watching death approach her ship slowly and inevitably. She thought about the families in the cargo bays, the children who would never grow up, the elderly who had survived one war only to die in another. "Shields at 15%. The engineer called out. "One more direct hit and we are finished." Zara gripped the arms of her captain's chair. She would not give up. She would not surrender her people to slavery or death. If these were her last moments, she would face them with dignity. The Krathian ship charged its weapons for the killing blow, and somewhere in the darkness of space, in a military station on the edge of human territory, an alarm started beeping. A message had arrived. A desperate call for help from strangers in trouble. The question was simple but profound. Would the humans answer? Commander Jake Morrison was drinking coffee when the alarm went off. It was his third cup of the night and he needed it. Running Deep Space Station Armstrong was not glamorous work, but it was important. The station sat at the very edge of human territory, watching the border between human space and the rest of the galaxy. Jake was 45 years old, with gray hair starting to show at his temples. He had spent his entire adult life in the military, working his way up through the ranks. He was not flashy or dramatic. He was steady, reliable, and careful. Those qualities had kept him and his crew alive for years. When the distress signal came through, everything changed. Lieutenant Sophie Martinez was working the communication station. She was a skilled officer, young but very competent. When she heard the message, her eyes went wide. She played it once, then played it again to make sure she understood correctly. "Commander Morrison, you need to hear this," Sophie said. Her voice was tight with tension. Jake walked over to her station. Sophie pressed a button and a voice filled the command center. It was female, speaking in accented but clear Galactic standard. The voice was calm, but Jake could hear the fear underneath. "This is Captain Zara Veltas of the civilian transport Gentle Dawn. We are under attack by a Krathian battlecruiser in neutral space. We are unarmed. We have 3,000 civilians aboard, including many children. We request immediate assistance from any vessel that can help us. Please, if anyone can hear this, we are dying." The command center went silent. Every officer stopped what they were doing and looked at Jake. They all understood what this meant. This was the moment they had trained for but hoped would never come. "Where are they?" Jake asked quietly. Sophie checked her sensors. 30 minutes away at maximum speed. They are in the neutral zone, just barely outside our territory. The signal is getting weaker. Their ship is taking heavy damage. Jake stood there for a moment thinking. Technically, this was not his problem. The attack was happening in neutral space. He had no orders to intervene. If he sent ships out there, he could start an international incident. The politicians back on Earth might be angry. The Krathian Empire might use this as an excuse for war. But then he thought about those 3,000 people. He thought about children huddled in the cargo bay, terrified as explosions tore through their ship. He thought about families who had already lost everything, now about to lose their lives too. The decision was actually very simple. "Sound general quarters," Jake ordered. His voice was firm and clear. "I want every available ship ready to launch in 5 minutes. Get me the Endeavour, the Wellington, and the Titan. All 3 destroyers are going in hot." The command center exploded into action. Alarms rang throughout the station. Officers ran to their posts. Down in the docking bays, pilots sprinted toward their ships, pulling on flight suits as they ran. Jake opened a channel to the 3 destroyers. Captain Lisa Chen appeared on the screen first. She commanded the Endeavor, the most advanced destroyer in the fleet. She was in her early 40s with sharp eyes and a reputation for being fearless in combat. Captain Chen, we have a civilian transport under attack in the neutral zone. 3,000 civilians, including children. Krathian battlecruiser. I need you to move now. Lisa did not hesitate. Understood. The Endeavor is launching immediately. Send me the coordinates. Commander Rick Patterson from the Wellington checked in next. Wellington is ready. We will follow the Endeavor. Captain Henry Blake from the Titan was the last to respond. The Titan is go. Let us show these Krathians what happens when they mess with civilians. Jake watched on the external cameras as the 3 destroyers undocked from the station. They were beautiful ships, sleek and deadly. Unlike the elegant curves of most alien vessels, human warships were all angles and armor. They looked brutal, and they were. Humanity had spent thousands of years perfecting the art of war. These ships represented the peak of that terrible knowledge. Jake also sent a flash message to the carrier group, patrolling deeper in human space. The Eisenhower Strike Force, commanded by Admiral Kate Sullivan, was 6 hours away, too far to help with the immediate crisis, but Jake wanted them ready. If this situation escalated, he wanted overwhelming force available. The 3 destroyers accelerated hard, pushing toward maximum speed. Inside those ships, the crews were pressed back into their seats by forces that would seriously injure most alien species. Humans had evolved on a heavy gravity world. Their bodies were built to withstand pressure that would crush more delicate beings. Aboard the Endeavor, Captain Chen studied the tactical data. The Krathian battlecruiser was big, heavily armed, and crewed by experienced warriors. On paper, it outgunned her destroyer significantly. On paper, this fight should be difficult. But Chen was not worried. She knew something the Krathians did not understand. Human ships were different. Human tactics were different. Humans had been fighting wars since before they could write. They had perfected combined arms warfare through thousands of brutal conflicts. They understood how to coordinate, how to communicate, how to use every advantage. Most importantly, humans fought for something. They fought to protect. When a human soldier knew innocents were in danger, they became something more than just professional warriors. They became absolutely relentless. Lieutenant Greg Foster was the tactical officer on the Endeavor. He was pulling up everything they knew about Krathian battlecruisers. Design specifications, weapon ranges, shield frequencies, common tactics. The database was extensive. Humans might be new to the galaxy, but they studied everything obsessively. Captain, I have a firing solution, Greg reported. The Krathian shields are designed to deflect energy weapons, but our railguns use kinetic penetrators, solid tungsten rods moving at high velocity. Their shields will not stop them, Chen nodded. Good. Coordinate with the Wellington and the Titan. I want a simultaneous strike from 3 angles. We hit them hard and fast, targeting their weapon systems first. We need to stop them from firing on that transport. The 3 human ships were in constant communication, sharing data and planning their attack. They moved like a single organism, each ship knowing exactly where the others would be. This level of coordination was rare in galactic warfare. Most species fought as individuals, each captain making their own decisions. Humans fought as a pack. Back on the station, Jake listened to the communications. He heard the calm, professional voices of his officers as they prepared for combat. He felt pride in these people. They had not hesitated when he gave the order. They had not questioned whether it was their responsibility. They had simply moved to help. Sophie looked up from her station. Commander, we are receiving another transmission from the Gentle Dawn. It is just automated now. Their communication system must be damaged. Hull integrity is at 30% and falling. Jake felt his jaw tighten. How long until our ships arrive? 23 minutes, 23 minutes. It seemed like forever. Jake knew that ship could be destroyed in the next few seconds. Those 3,000 people could die before his ships even arrived. But there was nothing he could do except wait and hope. He stood in the command center, watching the tactical display as 3 blue markers representing his ships raced toward a red marker representing the Krathian battlecruiser. Aboard the Endeavor, Captain Chen sat in her command chair. Her crew was ready. Her weapons were armed. Her ship was a coiled spring waiting to be released. She thought about the people on that transport. Refugees who had already lost everything. Children who did not understand why their world was full of violence and fear. She thought about what it meant to be human, to come from a world that tried to kill you every day, to be the descendants of beings who refused to give up no matter how bad things got. The Krathians were about to learn an important lesson. When humans said they would help, they meant it. And when humans went to war, they did not just fight. They won. 15 minutes to contact, Greg announced. Chen allowed herself a small, grim smile. Good, let us go save some lives. War leader Threshnok stood on the bridge of his battlecruiser, watching the Valorian transport ship slowly die. He was enjoying himself. The hunting was good today. His crew had already disabled most of the transport's shields, and it was only a matter of time before they could board it and claim their prize. Threshnok was a typical Krathian warrior. He stood over 7 feet tall, covered in thick green scales that could stop most small weapons. His teeth were sharp, his claws were deadly, and his eyes were cold. He had fought in dozens of battles, captured hundreds of ships, and never lost a fight. The refugees on that transport would make excellent slaves. They could be sold to mining operations or factory worlds. The children would be worth the most. Young slaves could be trained and would work for many years. Threshnok was already calculating how much profit this raid would bring him. War leader, we are detecting 3 ships dropping out of hyperspace, his sensor officer hissed. The Krathian language was all sharp sounds and clicking noises. They are moving very fast. Unknown configuration. Threshnok looked at his tactical display. 3 vessels had appeared, approaching at high speed. They were smaller than his battlecruiser, which pleased him. Probably some foolish peacekeepers thinking they could interfere with Krathian business. Hail them, Threshnok ordered. Tell them to leave immediately or be destroyed. The response came quickly. The voice was in clear galactic standard, but the accent was strange, flat, emotionless. It reminded Threshnok of the way predators sounded, just before they attacked. This is Commander Jake Morrison of the United Earth Defense Force. You are attacking civilians in neutral space. Power down your weapons and withdraw, or we will consider you hostile and respond with lethal force. You have 30 seconds to comply. Threshnok laughed. The sound echoed across his bridge. Earth Defense Force humans, the Deathworlders. He had heard stories about them, whispered rumors from other species. They came from a planet so deadly that just thinking about it made most beings uncomfortable. But Threshnok did not believe in fairy tales. His battlecruiser was massive. It had weapons that could crack a moon in half. His crew was experienced and brutal. These 3 small human ships were nothing. They were insects buzzing around a predator. Foolish mammals. Threshnok snarled into the communications channel. You dare threaten the Krathian Empire? I will enjoy adding your ships to my collection. Your crews will serve me as slaves. He turned to his weapons officer. Target the lead vessel. Fire when ready. But before his weapons officer could press the firing button, everything went wrong. All 3 human ships opened fire at exactly the same moment. Threshnok saw his tactical display light up with incoming projectiles. Not energy beams like most species used. These were solid objects moving incredibly fast. The first impact shook the entire battlecruiser. Threshnok grabbed his command chair to keep from falling. His shields, designed to deflect energy weapons, did almost nothing against the solid tungsten rods that slammed into his ship. The penetrators punched through the shielding like it was paper. Damage report, Threshnok roared. Forward shields have collapsed, his engineer replied, his voice filled with panic. Hull breaches on decks 3 and 7. We have casualties. How is this possible? His battlecruiser was superior in every way. It was bigger, more heavily armed, and had more crew. Yet these 3 human ships were tearing him apart. The humans attacked with frightening coordination. They did not fight like individuals. They fought like a single organism with 3 bodies. One ship would fire while the others moved to new positions. When he tried to target one, the others would hit him from different angles. His shields could not cover everywhere at once. Return fire, Threshnok screamed. Destroy them! His crew tried. They fired their energy weapons, massive beams of destructive power that could vaporize most ships. But the human vessels were fast, incredibly fast. They dodged and weaved, their movements precise and calculated. The few shots that did hit were absorbed by shields that seemed far more powerful than they should be. Aboard the Endeavor, Captain Lisa Chen watched her tactical display with satisfaction. The Krathian ship was exactly where she wanted it. Confused, damaged, and desperate. "Target their weapon systems," she ordered. "I want them disabled, not destroyed. We need prisoners to answer for what they tried to do here." Lieutenant Greg Foster worked his controls with expert precision. The Endeavor's targeting computers were some of the most advanced in the galaxy. They could track hundreds of targets simultaneously and calculate firing solutions in milliseconds. "Firing solution locked," Greg reported. Coordinating with the Wellington and the Titan, the 3 human destroyers fired another coordinated salvo. This time they were not aiming for the hull. They targeted specific systems. The Krathian battlecruiser's main weapons array exploded in a brilliant flash. Secondary weapons followed. Within seconds, the massive ship was defenseless. On the Krathian bridge, Threshnak stared at his displays in disbelief. His weapons were gone. His shields were failing. His engines were damaged. The battle had lasted less than 4 minutes, and he was completely defeated. How? How had 3 smaller ships destroyed his battlecruiser so easily? What kind of warriors were these humans? The answer was simpler than he realized. Humans came from a world where everything tried to kill them. They had evolved to be adaptable, intelligent, and absolutely ruthless when necessary. They had spent thousands of years fighting wars against each other, perfecting tactics and strategy. They understood something most galactic species had forgotten. War was not about honor or glory. It was about winning. The human voice came over the communications channel again. "Still calm, still emotionless. Krathian vessel, this is your final warning. Surrender immediately, or we will destroy you. We are transmitting your ship's position and combat logs to the Galactic Council. You have violated multiple treaties. Your crew will face trial for attempted piracy and assault on civilians." Threshnak felt something he had never experienced before. Fear. Real, genuine fear. These humans were not angry or emotional. They were simply doing a job, and they were terrifyingly good at it. "We surrender," Threshnak said quietly. The words tasted like poison in his mouth, but he had no choice. His ship was crippled. His crew would die if they continued fighting. Within minutes, human Marines began boarding his ship. They arrived in powered armor that made them look like walking tanks. Each Marine was heavily armed and moved with military precision. They secured the bridge quickly and efficiently. No one was hurt unnecessarily, but it was clear that resistance would be met with immediate and overwhelming force. A human Marine approached Threshnak. Through the armor's faceplate, he could see the human's eyes. They were not cruel or angry. They were simply determined, professional. "You and your crew are under arrest," the Marine said. "You will be held for trial by the Galactic Council. Do not resist, and you will not be harmed." Threshnak nodded slowly. He had learned a valuable lesson today, though it came too late to help him. The humans were not to be underestimated. They were not simple newcomers to be pushed around. They were apex predators who had organized themselves into something far more dangerous than any single warrior could be. Meanwhile, human damage control teams had already transferred to the Gentle Dawn. Captain Zara Velthas watched in amazement as these Deathworlders worked on her ship. They moved quickly and efficiently, sealing hull breaches, stabilizing power systems, and treating the wounded. A human engineer, a woman with short dark hair and kind eyes, approached Zara. "Captain Velthas, your ship is stable now. We will escort you to the nearest safe port for proper repairs. Your people are safe." Zara felt tears forming in her eyes. She had gambled everything on these strange, supposedly dangerous beings. And they had come. They had risked their lives to save complete strangers. "Thank you," Zara said softly. "Thank you for answering our call." The human engineer smiled. It was a warm, genuine expression. That is what we do. When someone calls for help, we answer. Every time. News traveled fast in the galaxy. Within hours of the battle, every major government knew what had happened. The combat logs from both the Krathian battlecruiser and the Valorian transport were analyzed by military experts on hundreds of worlds. Everyone wanted to understand how 3 human ships had defeated a much larger vessel so completely. On the Valorian homeworld, a beautiful planet covered in purple forests and blue oceans, the civilian council gathered in emergency session. The council chamber was a circular room with tall windows that let in the golden afternoon light. Representatives from every major city sat in rising tiers, their 4 arms gesturing as they debated. Ambassador Lyra Vesthal was 300 years old, which made her young by Valorian standards. Her people lived for centuries, and Lyra had spent most of her life in diplomatic service. She had seen wars, treaties, and countless debates. But today felt different. Today might change the entire galaxy. For 40 years we have avoided the humans, Lyra said, her voice carrying clearly across the chamber. We feared them because they came from a death world. We worried they would be violent, unpredictable, dangerous. But yesterday, they did something that makes me question everything we believed. She pressed a button and a holographic image appeared above the center of the chamber. It showed the Gentle Dawn, damaged and surrounded by human ships. Human damage control teams could be seen working on the hull, their movements quick and efficient. They did not hesitate, Lyra continued. When Captain Velthus sent that distress call, the humans responded immediately. They risked their own ships and crews to save our people. Complete strangers. They had no treaty obligations, no political reasons to help. They came because it was the right thing to do. An older counselor stood up. His name was Torvin, and he was known for being cautious. But Ambassador, the humans also demonstrated incredible military power. They destroyed a Krathian battlecruiser in less than 4 minutes. What if they decide to use that power against us? Lyra looked at him calmly. They could have destroyed that cruiser completely. They chose not to. They disabled it and took prisoners. They followed our laws even when they could have simply eliminated the threat. That tells me something important about who they are. The debate continued for hours, but eventually the council reached a decision. They would formally request an alliance with humanity. They would be the first major species to do so. Meanwhile, in the Krathian Empire, the reaction was very different. The empire was ruled by an emperor who sat on a throne made from the bones of conquered enemies. The throne room was dark and cold, lit only by red lights that cast long shadows. When the High Command heard about Threshnak's defeat, their first reaction was rage. They wanted revenge. They wanted to punish the humans for daring to interfere in Krathian business. Several young commanders argued for immediate military action, but Supreme War Leader Krossitha was old and wise. He had fought in more battles than most Krathians had lived years. He had seen empires rise and fall. And he knew danger when he saw it. Krossitha stood before the council, his scales gray with age but his eyes still sharp. He played the combat logs for everyone to see. The footage showed the human ships moving with perfect coordination, their weapons firing with devastating accuracy. This changes everything, Krossitha said quietly. The humans are not like other species. Look at how they fight. No wasted movements, no hesitation, no mercy for their enemies, but they took prisoners instead of killing everyone. They are disciplined, organized, and absolutely effective. He paused and looked around the room. They are apex predators who learn to work together. That makes them more dangerous than anything we have faced before. We cannot simply bully them like we have bullied others. The younger commanders grumbled, but they could not argue with the evidence. The combat logs did not lie. At the Galactic Council headquarters, a massive space station that orbited a neutral star, representatives from over 200 species gathered. The council chamber was enormous, with seats arranged in circles that rose toward a glass dome showing the stars above. Ambassador Victoria Lang represented humanity. She was 53 years old, with gray streaks in her brown hair and lines around her eyes that came from years of diplomatic work. She had spent the past 5 years learning galactic politics, studying hundreds of different cultures and customs. Victoria stood at the human podium, looking out at the assembled representatives. Some were nodding with approval. Others looked worried or even hostile. The species that were allied with the Krathian Empire were particularly upset. A representative from the Thaxian Collective, a species known for trading with the Krathians, spoke up. Ambassador Lang, humanity used excessive force. You destroyed a sovereign vessel of the Krathian Empire without authorization from this council. Victoria kept her expression neutral, but inside she felt anger rising. She had reviewed the logs. She had seen what the Krathians were doing, and now this representative was trying to make the humans look like the bad guys. We did not destroy their vessel, Victoria replied calmly. We disabled it and took prisoners. The Krathian ship was attacking unarmed civilians in neutral space, which violates 3 separate treaties. We offered them multiple opportunities to withdraw peacefully. They refused and continued their assault. She pressed a button and holographic images filled the chamber. They showed the gentle dawn being torn apart by weapons fire. They showed the distress call that Captain Velthas had sent. They showed the fear and desperation in that call. We did what any moral species would do, Victoria continued. We protected the innocent. We saved 3,000 lives, including hundreds of children. The chamber went quiet. Many representatives were nodding now. The images were powerful and they told a clear story. Victoria took a deep breath. What she said next would define humanity's role in the galaxy for years to come. She needed to get this right. Members of the Council, let me be clear about human principles. We will not start fights, but we will finish them. We will not stand by while innocents are slaughtered, and we will not apologize for defending those who cannot defend themselves. She paused, looking around the chamber at hundreds of different faces from hundreds of different worlds. If that makes us uncomfortable neighbors, so be it. But know this. If you are a civilian in distress, if you are a refugee fleeing violence, if you are threatened by those who would harm you, humanity will answer your call. Always. That is not a threat. It is a promise. The chamber erupted in noise. Some representatives applauded. Others argued. The Thaxian representative looked angry. But Victoria noticed that many of the smaller species, the ones who lived in fear of aggressive neighbors, were looking at her with something new in their eyes. Hope. After the session ended, Victoria returned to her quarters. She felt exhausted but satisfied. She had said what needed to be said. Now they would see what happened next. Her assistant brought her messages from Earth. The government was pleased with how she had handled the situation. But more importantly, she had messages from ordinary people, humans who had watched the council session and felt proud of what their species stood for. One message was from a retired soldier who had fought in the resource wars back on Earth. He wrote simply, "You made us proud today. You showed them who we are," Victoria smiled. Yes, she had shown them. Humanity was not perfect. They had their own problems and conflicts. But when it mattered, when innocents needed help, humans would be there. That night across the galaxy, millions of beings went to sleep thinking about the humans. Some feared them more than before. Some saw them as potential allies. Some began to wonder if maybe, just maybe, having these Deathworlders as neighbors was exactly what the galaxy needed. The word was spreading. When you are in trouble, call the humans. They will come. The Krathian Empire did not take Ambassador Lang's speech well. They were used to being feared. They were used to taking what they wanted. Having a new species, these upstart humans, tell them to back down was insulting. Within a week, the Empire made its response clear. 20 Krathian warships appeared near the border of human space. The official statement said they were conducting military exercises, but everyone knew the truth. This was a threat. This was the Krathian way of showing strength and demanding respect. Admiral Kate Sullivan stood on the bridge of her flagship, the carrier Abraham Lincoln. At 60 years old, Kate was the most senior officer in the human fleet. She had gray hair cut short, sharp green eyes, and a reputation for being both brilliant and absolutely fearless. Kate had fought in the resource wars back on Earth, those terrible conflicts over water and food and energy that nearly destroyed human civilization. She had seen cities burn. She had lost friends and family. Those experiences had taught her important lessons about war, about sacrifice, and about when to fight and when to find another way. She studied the tactical display showing the Krathian fleet. 20 warships was a serious force. They were not here to talk. They were here to test humanity, to see if the rescue of the Gentle Dawn was luck or skill. Commander Nicole Hayes, Kate's intelligence officer, approached with a data pad. Nicole was 35, brilliant at analyzing enemy movements and intentions. She had predicted this Krathian response days ago. "Admiral, we are receiving reports of raids along the border, small attacks on civilian targets. The Krathians are testing us, trying to provoke a response." Kate nodded slowly. This was a classic tactic. Attack civilians and see how the enemy responds. If they overreact, you use it as justification for war. If they do nothing, you look weak and you keep attacking. "How many civilian casualties?" Kate asked quietly. 12 dead so far, mostly traders and explorers. "The attacks are hitting ships in neutral space just like they did with the Gentle Dawn." Kate felt anger burning in her chest. 12 people dead because the Krathians wanted to play power games. 12 families destroyed because someone needed to prove they were tough. She made her decision quickly. She had been given full authority by Earth's government to handle threats as she saw fit. They trusted her judgment. Now she would show the Krathians and everyone else watching exactly what humanity stood for. "Send out the call," Kate ordered. "I want every available human warship to converge on my position. Every carrier, every battleship, every destroyer. I want overwhelming force, and I want it now." Nicole's eyes went wide. "Admiral, that is the entire fleet. Every ship we have." "Exactly," Kate said firmly. "The Krathians wanted to know if we were serious. Let us show them." The response was incredible. Within hours, human ships started arriving from every corner of their territory. The Roosevelt Strike Group, commanded by Admiral Frank Cooper, appeared first. Then came the Yamato Battle Group led by Vice Admiral Helen Wright. The Churchill Squadron under Rear Admiral Peter Stone followed. More ships kept coming. Destroyers, cruisers, support vessels, repair ships, even medical frigates. The humans were not just bringing weapons. They were bringing everything needed to sustain a long operation. Captain Zara Velthas watched from the gentle dawn, which was still being repaired by human engineers. She had never seen anything like this. The human fleet assembled with a precision that seemed almost impossible. Every ship knew exactly where to go, exactly what its role was. By the end of the day, over 60 human warships had gathered. The fleet outnumbered the Krathian force 3-1. But it was not just about numbers. The composition was perfect: carriers with fighter wings, battleships with heavy weapons, destroyers for fast attack, cruisers for support. Everything balanced, everything coordinated. Zara realized something important as she watched. This was not a collection of individual ships. This was a single organism, a machine designed for one purpose. If the humans decided to attack, the Krathian fleet would not stand a chance. Admiral Sullivan broadcast a message on all frequencies. She wanted everyone to hear this. The Krathians, the Valorians, every species in the sector. This moment would define humanity's place in the galaxy. This is Admiral Kate Sullivan of the United Earth Defense Force. To all civilian vessels in this sector, this area is now under human protection. Any vessel requiring assistance should broadcast on emergency channels. We will respond immediately. She paused, letting her words sink in before continuing. To all military vessels of the Krathian Empire, you are ordered to withdraw from this sector immediately. Any further attacks on civilian targets will be considered an act of war against humanity. We will respond with overwhelming force. Kate took a deep breath. This next part was important. She needed to make humanity's position absolutely clear. Let me make something clear to everyone listening. Humanity did not come to the stars looking for conflict. We came seeking peace, knowledge, and friendship. But we are the children of Earth, a world that tried to kill us every single day for millions of years. We survived by learning to stand together, to protect the weak, and to never surrender in the face of tyranny. She looked at the tactical display showing both fleets. The Krathian ships looked small compared to the assembled human force. That is who we are. That is what we stand for. And if you threaten innocence, you will discover that humanity is very, very good at what we do. The broadcast ended. Now came the waiting. Would the Krathians back down, or would this turn into the first major war between humans and another galactic species? In the Krathian capital, Supreme War Leader Krostha sat with the Emperor and the High Command. They were watching the human fleet through long-range sensors. The old warrior had run simulations, studied human tactics, analyzed every piece of data available. His conclusion was clear and undeniable. If they fought the humans, they would lose. Not eventually. Not after a long campaign. They would lose quickly and completely. "My Emperor," Krostha said carefully, "we cannot win this fight. The humans are not like other species. They do not fight for glory or to prove their strength. They fight to win, and they use every advantage they have." He pulled up tactical displays showing the human fleet formation. "Look at this. Perfect spacing. Perfect coordination. They have carriers positioned to launch fighters at multiple angles. Their battleships can provide covering fire for any position. Their destroyers can respond to threats in seconds. This is not just a fleet. This is a weapon system." The Emperor looked at his oldest and most trusted warrior. "Are you saying we should surrender to these mammals?" "I am saying we should be wise," Krostha replied. "We have ruled through fear for centuries. But the humans do not fear us. They respect strength, but they will not be bullied. If we withdraw now, we look cautious but rational. If we attack and lose, we look weak and foolish. The debate continued for hours. But in the end, wisdom prevailed over pride. The order was given. The Krathian fleet withdrew without firing a shot. On the bridge of the Abraham Lincoln, Admiral Sullivan watched the Krathian ships turn and jump to hyperspace. She felt relief wash over her. No one would die today. No ships would be destroyed. The crisis was over. Commander Hayes approached with a smile. Admiral, we are receiving communications from dozens of species. Many want to open diplomatic relations. The Valorians are requesting a formal alliance. Even some Krathian colonies are asking for protection from their own empire. Kate nodded slowly. Everything had changed. A week ago, humanity was isolated, viewed with suspicion by most of the galaxy. Today they were seen as protectors, as allies worth having. Respond to all diplomatic requests, Kate ordered. Tell them humanity is ready to talk. But make sure they understand our principles. We will not compromise on protecting innocence, ever. As the human fleet began to disperse, returning to their stations and patrols, Kate recorded a personal log. Her thoughts would become required reading for future officers. Today we proved something important. We showed the galaxy that humanity's greatest strength is not our weapons or tactics. It is our willingness to stand up for what is right, even when it is dangerous. We answered a distress call from strangers, and that simple act changed everything. Let the word go out across the stars. If you need help, call the humans. We will come, every single time. 6 months had passed since the incident that changed everything. The galaxy was different now. Humanity was different. The relationships between species across hundreds of worlds had shifted in ways no one could have predicted. Captain Zara. Feltha stood in the observation deck of a space station orbiting Earth. She had been invited here as part of the new cultural exchange program between the Valorian Confederacy and the United Earth government. Through the massive windows, she could see the beautiful blue and green planet below, wrapped in white clouds. It was hard to believe this was a Class 12 Deathworld. From space, it looked peaceful, even inviting, but Zara had read the reports. She knew about the hurricanes that could flatten cities, the earthquakes that could swallow towns, the diseases that killed millions before humans learned to control them. She knew about the predators, some weighing tons with teeth like daggers. How had humans not only survived on this nightmare world, but thrived? How had they turned all that danger and death into strength? Zara was beginning to understand. Adversity had made them tough. Constant threat had made them innovative. The need to work together against a hostile environment had made them the most cooperative warriors in the galaxy. Commander Jake Morrison approached her, carrying 2 cups of coffee. He had been assigned as her liaison during the visit. Over the past week, they had become friends. Jake had shown her Earth's military academies, their training facilities, and explained human military philosophy. Beautiful, is it not? Jake said, looking down at his homeworld. Hard to imagine all the terrible things down there when you see it like this. Zara took the offered coffee carefully with 2 of her 4 hands. She had learned to like the bitter human beverage. I have been thinking about something, Commander. When I sent that distress call, I was terrified. Not just of the Krathians, but of asking you for help. Everyone told stories about humans being dangerous, unpredictable. Jake smiled sadly. We know, we heard those stories too. For 40 years, most species avoided us. They saw where we came from and decided we were too dangerous to approach. But you are not dangerous, Zara said. Well, you are, but not in the way everyone thought. You are dangerous to those who threaten innocence. You are dangerous to bullies and tyrants. But to those who need help, you are the safest beings in the galaxy. Jake looked at her for a moment, then nodded. That is exactly who we want to be. Earth taught us hard lessons. We almost destroyed ourselves multiple times. Wars over resources, over religion, over territory. We came very close to extinction. But we learned. We learned that the strong must protect the weak, that cooperation beats conflict, and that sometimes the most important thing you can do is help someone who cannot help themselves. Down on Earth, in the capital city of Geneva, where the world government met, important decisions were being made. The Valorian alliance had been formalized. Trade agreements with 17 other species were being negotiated. Human ships now patrolled neutral zones throughout the sector, responding to distress calls that once would have gone unanswered. In the Krathian Empire, changes were happening too. Supreme War Leader Krostha had been promoted to High Warlord, the highest military position in the Empire. He was quietly reforming Krathian military doctrine, teaching a new generation of warriors that strength was not just about brute force. It was about knowing when to fight and when to find another way. Several Krathian colonies had formally requested human protection from their own empire's aggressive expansion. It was humiliating for the imperial government, but it sent a clear message. The old ways were not working anymore. The galaxy was changing. Admiral Kate Sullivan was giving a lecture at the Human Fleet Academy. The large auditorium was filled with cadets, young men and women who would become the next generation of officers. Kate stood at the podium, her uniform crisp, her bearing dignified. 6 months ago, we responded to a distress call, Kate began. It was a simple decision, really. People needed help. We had the ability to provide it. Everything else was just details. She looked out at the young faces watching her intently. These cadets would inherit the responsibility of protecting not just humanity, but all the species that now looked to Earth for help. But that simple decision had consequences we never imagined. It changed how the galaxy sees us. It changed our role in galactic politics. And most importantly, it established a precedent. When someone calls for help, humanity answers. That is not just policy now. It is who we are. A cadet raised her hand. Kate recognized her as Sophie Chen, the daughter of Captain Lisa Chen from the Endeavor. Admiral, what if helping someone puts Earth at risk? What if answering a distress call means starting a war? Kate smiled. It was a good question, the kind that showed real thought. That is the hard part of leadership, cadet. There will be times when helping someone costs us dearly. There will be situations where the right choice is also the dangerous choice. But here is what I have learned in 40 years of service. If you only do what is easy, if you only help when it is convenient, then your principles mean nothing. She paused, letting the words sink in. Humanity survived on a death world because we learned to help each other. When someone fell, we picked them up. When someone was threatened, we defended them. That instinct, that drive to protect others, is what made us strong enough to conquer Earth. Now we take that same instinct to the stars. The lecture continued for another hour, but that exchange would be remembered by everyone present. It captured something essential about what humanity had become. Back on the space station, Zara was preparing to return to her ship. The Gentle Dawn had been fully repaired, better than new, actually. Human engineers had upgraded her systems, improved her shields, and even given her some basic defensive weapons. She would never be a warship, but she could protect herself now. Jake walked her to the docking bay where her shuttle waited. They stopped at the airlock and Zara turned to face him. Thank you, Commander, she said simply, for everything. For responding to my call, for saving my people, for showing the galaxy that there are still those who stand for something good. Jake extended his hand in the human gesture of friendship. Zara shook it, using 2 of her hands to match his grip. You are welcome, Captain. But thank you for trusting us. Thank you for being brave enough to call us when everyone told you we were dangerous. You gave us the chance to show who we really are. Zara boarded her shuttle and departed. As she flew back to the Gentle Dawn, she looked at Earth shrinking in the distance. That beautiful, deadly world had produced something remarkable, not monsters as so many had feared. Not conquerors or tyrants, but protectors. Across the galaxy, the phrase had become common. When trouble came, when pirates attacked, when disaster struck, the advice was always the same. Call the humans. They will come, and they did come. Every single time. Human ships responded to distress calls in sectors they had never patrolled before. Human doctors treated patients from species they had just met. Human engineers rebuilt stations and colonies damaged by war or disaster. It was not about conquest or glory. It was not about building an empire or gaining power. It was simply about helping. It was about being the people they wanted to be. The people their hard history had taught them to be. Commander Jake Morrison sat in his office on Deep Space Station Armstrong, the place where everything had started. He was writing his report for headquarters, documenting the changes of the past 6 months. But his mind kept wandering back to that first distress call, to the decision he had made in seconds that changed everything. Would he make the same choice again? Absolutely. Without hesitation, because that was what humanity was about. When someone needed help, you helped them. It was that simple and that complicated. He finished his report and leaned back in his chair, looking out at the stars. Somewhere out there right now, someone might be in trouble. Someone might be scared, desperate, hoping for rescue that seemed impossible. And if they called, if they sent out that signal into the darkness, asking for help from the species everyone once feared, they would get an answer. The humans would come, with their powerful ships and their advanced weapons, yes, but more importantly, with their willingness to stand between innocence and harm, with their refusal to abandon those in need, with their determination to be better than the harsh world that made them. The SOS call had summoned the unstoppable Deathworlder fleet. But what arrived was not destruction or conquest. What arrived was hope. And the galaxy would never be the same. The end had become a beginning. The story of one rescue had become the foundation of something larger. A promise that echoed across the stars. A promise that would define humanity's place in the cosmos for generations to come. When you need help, call the humans. They will answer, always.